How many grams of sugar a day for weight loss? Let's talk about it in this video. In this video, we'll go through exactly what sugar is. And then we'll dive into how much you can have a day and still lose weight. And last, we'll cover the best way to lose your first, middle, or last 10 pounds. All right, so I brought in this bowl of sugar because this is what our mind goes to when we think about sugar. We think about white refined table sugar, but that is only a small part of the story. Dr. Lustig, Robert Lustig, a pediatrician out of the Bay Area, I think he has the best definition for sugar. I don't even know if he was the original one to come up with this, but I'm gonna give him credit for it anyway. Okay, are you ready? The definition of sugar: a chronic, dose-dependent hepatotoxin. All right, chronic, not acute, chronic, dose-dependent. That means there is a safe threshold. Hepato, liver. Toxin, poison. It's a liver poison. Now, I did say safe threshold. Yeah, there is a safe threshold. Look, there's a safe threshold for everything in the human body. There's a safe threshold for arsenic. And it's good to know the exact amount that you should have before it becomes problematic. But first, let's dive into the history of sugar and how it started to get where it is today. Because believe me, back in the day, we did not have a problem with sugar like we have today. There is documented research all the way back to the late 1800s that talk about the dangers of sugar. They called it different names back then. What happens with the body when it gets overloaded with sugar, or where the pancreas can't produce the insulin to bring the blood sugar down. In fact, they had a different name for diabetes until not so very long ago. You ever heard your grandma call it the sugars? I got me the sugar diabetes. Well, that's not what we call it nowadays, but that's what they used to call it. I got me a case of the sugars, they would say. There was a researcher by the name of John Yudkin, and in 1957, he published a paper trying to prove that sugar was dangerous. He tried to prove that sugar was the one causing the atherosclerosis, that sugar was causing coronary artery disease, that sugar was the problem for all of our metabolic diseases and the problems that we were starting to have back then. He was trying to prove that sugar was causing obesity and illness and feeding into cancer cells. He tried to present this as this is what was going on. But there was this man named Ancel Keys who was kind of like the nemesis. John Yudkin, Ancel Keys. It is gone down in history that this rival took place between these two people. Now, Ancel Keys was, history tells us he was quite the bully. And he was a very dominant person. And he steamrolled John Yudkin. And John Yudkin wasn't a dominant person. And Ancel Keys tried to prove that sugar was not the problem. In fact, he was paid off by the sugar industry to prove that fat was to blame for what sugar was doing. And that's how we got that whole idea. We were led to believe that fat was causing coronary artery disease, that fat was causing atherosclerosis, that fat was causing people to have heart attacks, and people were to die young because of fat, and that everybody should avoid bacon and everybody should eat low fat. He presented this evidence, which was cherry-picked. It wasn't even true. He lied. It's well documented that he lied. He tried to present this evidence, and he was successful at getting our government to change our whole stance on fat and demonize fat. At that point, we started to implement the low-fat guidelines, the fat-free, non-fat, the low-fat items, which were loaded with sugar and carbs. So you can see that since the 1980s, our obesity rate and our type 2 diabetes has more than doubled since then. Going low fat and not really talking about the sugar, hiding the facts about sugar, has made us the sickest and the fattest in human history. Before I go to my next point, I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me, how much sugar do you eat a day? Are you feeling brave? Comment below, let me know, how much sugar are you eating per day? About 200 years ago, we were having 3 pounds of sugar a year. Today, we're having 3 pounds of sugar per week. Yeah, that's a staggering number, not only in the fact that we're having so much sugar every week, each individual person, but how much we've changed over the past couple of centuries. Sugar used to not be available. Sugar used to not be something that everybody had at their fingertips. In fact, only rich people back in the day had sugar. And you can always tell the rich people because usually they were heavy. Skinny people didn't have sugar. They didn't even taste it very often. You remember the Willy Wonka film, the old school one, when Charlie had the chocolate bar? I mean, Charlie was poor. His parents and grandparents were poor. And just having that chocolate, you could tell he was like, oh, and he had saved up his money and he had bought the chocolate. That's how we used to think about chocolate. I mean, I know growing up, we didn't get sweets. We didn't get candy. And that's why us girls were so healthy growing up, because my mom cooked all of our meals, home cooked meal, and we just didn't have sugar. And anytime we did have sugar, it was homemade. It wasn't a store-bought processed sugar. So sugar is in 88% of the items in our grocery store, but they have gotten so clever to hide sugar in a whole host of names. Most of the names you can't even pronounce. Sugar is in everything. It is everywhere. But you know where it's not? It's not in real food. It's not in meat, vegetables, nuts, eggs, seeds, seafoods, and fat. That's why I've got you on those foods with the Code Red lifestyle. I want to get you off of sugar. But you might be wondering, how much sugar should I eat or can I have per day and still lose weight? The answer, 20 grams. No more than 20 grams. And I talk about this in my Code Red Revolution book. No more than 20 to 25 grams of sugar per day, which is roughly 5 teaspoons of sugar. It's not very much, especially when you count all the sugar. I'm talking total sugar. You can't just subtract out certain sugars like, well, I had an orange. Those sugars don't count, right? No, it's total sugar. Because listen, if you're watching this video, you probably have a weight problem. You probably want to lose some weight. So the key to losing weight is keeping that sugar down. Don't do the workaround. Don't try to skirt around the rules, all right? Do the program the way that I intended. Stick with my rules, and you're going to have great weight loss results. So you might notice on the Code Red lifestyle that I allow you to have stevia and monk fruit. I have very specific brands that I endorse. You can find that on my website. You can find that during our challenges. We talk about sweeteners, basically. And the reason that I endorse stevia and monk fruit is because stevia is a plant and monk fruit is an herb. And they're not going to spike your blood sugar. They're not going to trigger insulin. Again, we want insulin, we just don't want it very much, and we want a very small amount. If you get the stevia from my website, which is the raw, organic, non-GMO form, it doesn't have any fillers. You notice that the stevia from my website comes with that little tiny spoon? That's because you only need a very, very small amount. Monk fruit, same thing. I endorse Lecanto monk fruit. I don't have an affiliate with them. It's just a really good product. And monk fruit is an herb. It's not going to spike your blood sugar, and it's over 300 times sweeter than regular sugar. So I definitely suggest that you pick up one of these sugar alternatives from my website. Make sure that they are the ones that I endorse. Because if you just get stevia in the raw, is not the same as raw stevia. And the problem with those packets like Splenda and different things like that is they have the fillers in them. And the fillers like maltodextrin or maltitol or dextrose, those are very problematic. That's going to screw with your gut bacteria. You don't want any part of that whole thing. So stick with the stevia and the monk fruit that I recommend, and get yourself off of white refined table sugar. I definitely want to see you moving in a direction of better choices, especially when it comes to your kids. We don't want your kids coming to see me in 10 years because they have type 2 diabetes and they're obese. We already have a generation of kids that are not going to outlive their parents. We already have a generation of kids that are so fat and so sick that there's nobody to replace our military, our police force, our first responders. So let's start these kids early. Let's make sure they don't get addicted to sugar. Make sure that we get them on stevia or monk fruit if you absolutely insist on giving them something sweet. Let's get them to where they love the real food. On my 10-pound takedown challenge, I take a day and I specifically teach you just about sugar. We're going to go through all the stuff about sugar. You're going to learn and you're going to unlearn what we used to believe, what we were brainwashed to believe, that is just simply not true. So definitely get on the next challenge. I've linked it up below. It's easy. Just click on that link. It's a clickable link. Join the next challenge to lose 10 pounds in 30 days by following very simple rules. I'll see you on the next video.